I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd find himself in this kind of situation, but life has a funny way of flipping the script on you. My name is Matt, and I'm writing this to share my story, one I never thought I'd have to tell. I've been married to Jessica for 5 years, and honestly, it felt like we were in a pretty solid place. We had our ups and downs, sure, but we were good together, or so I thought. In the beginning, everything was bliss. We were that couple everyone envied, going on adventures, sharing dreams, and building a life together. But as the years rolled on, the little things started to creep in. Jessica became more distant. It was subtle at first. She'd come home late from work, claiming she had overtime. Then I noticed her phone was always buzzing and she'd become protective of it. She'd turn it face down on the table, and the moment I'd walk into the room, she'd quickly switch off whatever was on the screen. I shrugged it off initially. Maybe she was just working on a surprise for me or something. But then the excuses piled up. One night, after dropping my younger cousin, Kyle, off at home, I decided to swing by my favorite bar. I needed to relax a bit, maybe grab a drink and watch the game. As I settled in with a cold beer, I saw Kyle there, laughing with a woman I didn't recognize. They were too close, too comfortable. My gut twisted. I watched for a moment and then froze when I realized who she was, Sarah, the wife of Kyle's older brother, Tom. Just as I was about to approach them, I noticed the flicker of Jessica's blonde hair at the corner of the bar. My heart sank. I didn't want to believe my eyes. I peered closer, and there she was, laughing, playfully swatting Kyle's arm. The sight of them together made my skin crawl. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't even notice me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I downed the rest of my drink, my mind racing. Was she cheating on me with my cousin, or was this just a misunderstanding? But deep down, I knew. That feeling of betrayal washed over me like a cold wave. When I got home, I tried to act normal, but I could feel the anger bubbling under the surface. Jessica greeted me with a kiss, her usual spark in her eyes. I smiled back, but my mind was reeling. I wanted to confront her right there, to scream and demand answers, but I held back. I figured I needed proof, something concrete. So I started an investigation of my own. I spent the next few days paying close attention to her. I noticed every late-night work meeting, every missed phone call, every time she would claim she was too tired to go out. The final straw was when I came home early one day, only to find her frantically texting someone as soon as I walked in. She had the nerve to act like everything was normal, but I could see the panic in her eyes. That's when I decided to confront her. I had to know the truth. I waited for the right moment. One evening, while we were having dinner, I brought up the late nights and the secretive behavior. I could see her face change. The charm and laughter evaporated. She tried to brush it aside, claiming it was work-related stress. But I wasn't buying it. I had seen the way she interacted with Kyle, so I pressed further. "Jess, are you cheating on me?" The words felt heavy as they left my lips. Her reaction was swift. She laughed nervously and said, "Come on, Matt, that's ridiculous. You really think I'd do that?" The way she said it felt rehearsed, but deep down I could see the cracks starting to show. I pressed on, telling her what I'd seen and how her behavior had changed. Her excuse was the usual. She was just stressed from work and Kyle was a friend. But I could see through the lies. The excuses felt like nails on a chalkboard, and each one drove me deeper into a pit of rage and sorrow. As she spoke, I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know it's happening, but you can't look away. I could see the discomfort in her eyes, the way she struggled to maintain her composure. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand she tell me the truth, but instead I just sat there numb. That night was just the beginning. I felt like I was at a crossroads and I had to decide how to move forward. All the love I had for her felt like a distant memory. I had to come to terms with the fact that the person I thought I knew might not even exist anymore. My heart was heavy, and the emotional turmoil was like a storm brewing inside me. Was I ready to give up on my marriage, or was there a way to salvage what was left? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew one thing. I needed to expose the truth. It's what she deserved for betraying me, and the thought of revenge began to take root in my mind. As I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, a plan started to form. This wouldn't end quietly. Jessica was going to face the consequences of her actions. But how? That became my next obsession. I wouldn't just expose her. I would ensure that she experienced the humiliation of her choices. I had a few ideas and they weren't pretty. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and anger. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, and every time I saw Jessica, I felt a mix of love and rage colliding in my chest. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, unsure of what to do next. I felt like a soldier preparing for battle, and my mission was clear. I had to expose Jessica for who she really was. I spent hours thinking about my plan. The more I thought about it, the more I wanted to ensure she felt the weight of her choices. I didn't want to just tell her I knew. I wanted her to face the fallout in front of everyone, to truly understand the repercussions of her actions. The thought of revenge fueled me, but deep down I had to be careful. I couldn't just go in guns blazing. It had to be calculated. My cousin Kyle was someone I could use, and he didn't even know it yet. I decided to reach out to him under the guise of wanting to catch up. I called him the next day, and we agreed to meet up for lunch. As I sat across from him at our usual diner, I tried to keep my composure, socializing as if everything was normal, but inside I was battling an internal storm, knowing what I had to do. "Hey man, it's been too long," Kyle said, grinning. "How, Jess?" My stomach turned at the mention of her name. "She's good, busy with work, you know." I forced a smile and took a sip of my coffee, trying to act casual. "How's Sarah?" "Oh, she's good too, just working on some projects. You know how it is." Kyle chuckled and took a bite of his burger, unaware of the drama unfolding behind the scenes. I had to play this right. I steered the conversation to Sarah, casually mentioning how great she was and how I considered her a sister. The more I talked, the more I felt like an actor in a twisted play, but I needed to create a scenario where the truth could emerge without me looking like the villain. Actually, I was thinking about a little get-together. You know, something for the couples, I suggested, watching Kyle's reaction. "Sounds good. Who do you have in mind?" he asked with enthusiasm. I paused, mentally preparing myself for the next part. "How about we invite Sarah and Jess? It'll be fun. Some games, drinks, you know the drill." Kyle nodded, completely on board. "Perfect. I'll talk to Sarah about it." He didn't seem to question my intentions, and I felt a rush of excitement at the prospect of bringing everyone together. The days passed, and I arranged for a gathering at our house. I planned it meticulously, ensuring there would be plenty of opportunities for me to reveal the truth. I spoke to a couple of friends who were in on the secret, telling them to keep their ears open for any signs of infidelity. Meanwhile, Jessica was blissfully unaware of the trap I was setting. The night of the get-together arrived, and I felt a mix of adrenaline and dread. I had spent the day preparing, cleaning the house, and setting up everything from snacks to drinks. When Jessica walked in, she was glowing, excited to see everyone. I put on my best husband mask and welcomed her with a kiss, pretending everything was normal. As the night progressed, laughter filled the room, and the tension was almost palpable. I watched Jessica and Kyle interact, noticing the way their eyes lingered a bit too long on each other. It was infuriating and heartbreaking all at once, but I kept my composure, playing the perfect host while my mind raced with anticipation. After dinner, I decided it was time to make my move. I waited for a moment when everyone was engaged in conversation, then casually brought up a game to lighten the mood. "Let's play Truth or Dare. It's been ages since I've played," I suggested, masking my true intentions with a friendly smile. Of course, everyone was enthusiastic. Jessica laughed, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of the game. My heart pounded in my chest as we went around the circle, each person taking turns. I watched as Kyle dared Sarah to do a silly dance, and she complied, making everyone laugh. But I wasn't there to enjoy the lightheartedness. I was there to shine a spotlight on the truth. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "Okay, Jess, truth or dare?" I asked, looking her dead in the eye. She smirked, clearly thinking I was going to ask something innocent. "Truth," she replied confidently. I could see the glimmer of mischief in my friend's eyes as they leaned in closer, sensing the tension. "Have you ever cheated on me?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside. The room fell silent. Jessica's smile faltered as shock washed over her face. "What kind of question is that?" she stammered, trying to regain her composure. "Just a game, right?" I shot back, my voice calm. "But seriously, you can tell us the truth." She fumbled for words, glancing at Kyle, who seemed just as confused. The tension in the room was electric. I watched the color drain from her face as the reality of the situation settled in. "It's just a game, come on, let's move on," she exclaimed, trying to laugh it off, but the panic in her eyes was unmistakable. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I wasn't done. "No, really, Jess, is there something you want to tell us? Maybe something about Kyle?" I pressed, letting the implications hang in the air like a thick fog. The denial in her eyes was clear. She was trying to hold onto her facade. But I could see the cracks beginning to show. I was relentless, fueled by a mixture of anger and the desire for revenge. "We all know you've been acting differently lately," I continued, my voice steady. "And I think it's time the truth comes out." Panic mingled with anger on her face, and I could sense everyone else in the room shifting uncomfortably. What I had planned was unfolding perfectly. The responses from my friends were a mix of shock and disbelief as they pieced together the reality of the situation. Jessica finally stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "This isn't funny, Matt, you're being ridiculous," she snapped, her voice shaky but laced with anger. I didn't back down. "You're the one who has a lot to answer for, Jess." The emotional weight of the moment hung over us, and as I watched her squirm, I felt a wave of vindication wash over me. I had exposed the truth, and from that moment on, I knew the dynamic had shifted. She was no longer in control of the narrative. Now it was my turn. The plan was in motion, and I was ready to see it through. Jessica's face was a mix of shock and fury, and I could see her mind racing to find a way out of this situation. I had thrown her a curveball, and she was struggling to regain her footing. Everyone's eyes were on her, waiting for her response, and the tension in the room was palpable. It was like we were trapped in a pressure cooker, and I was determined to turn up the heat. "Matt, you're being completely unreasonable," she said, her voice trembling but defiantly attempting to mask her fear. "You can't just throw accusations around like this without any evidence." Evidence. It was the perfect word to use because, deep down, I felt like I had enough. I had seen her with Kyle, and I had pieced together the lies she had spun. I had no intention of letting her waltz away from this confrontation unscathed. "Oh, really? Then why did I catch you and Kyle acting all cozy at the bar the other night?" I shot back, my heart racing as I leaned into the confrontation. "I know you've been sneaking around behind my back." The room fell silent, and I could feel the collective tension from my friends. Jessica's eyes darted around, panicking and looking for an escape route in the conversation. I watched as the realization of her truth started to sink in, and I knew I had her right where I wanted her. "Are you seriously accusing me of cheating with your cousin? This is ridiculous, you're just jealous." She spat back, her voice rising in indignation. But her reaction only served to fuel the fire inside me. I wanted to see her squirm, to feel the weight of her betrayal finally come crashing down on her. "You're right, Jess. I'm jealous, jealous of the lies, the deceit. You think I'm just going to sit back and let you ruin our marriage without a fight?" I said, taking a step closer to her, my voice steady but low, letting each word hang in the air like a blade waiting to drop. "I can't believe you're doing this," she said, tears forming in her eyes, a mix of anger and panic. "You're ruining everything." "Everything was already ruined the moment you decided to betray me," I countered, my voice unwavering. "This isn't just about you, Jess. This is about the trust you shattered and the pain you've caused." I could see her wavering, the facade of confidence crumbling as she tried to collect herself. But deep down, I could sense her trying to concoct yet another lie, another excuse to shield herself from the truth. "Maybe this is a misunderstanding," she stammered, her voice cracking slightly. "You're jumping to conclusions without hearing my side." A wave of anger surged through me. "Your side? What side can there possibly be, Jess? You've been lying to me, and I can't just sit here and pretend everything is fine when it's not." The room was tense, and my friends exchanged glances, unsure of how to intervene or whether to let it play out. I could see the discomfort on their faces, but I didn't care. I didn't want them to step in. I wanted this to unfold just as it was. Finally, Kyle spoke up, his tone hesitant but firm. Jess, if you're hiding something, now's the time to come clean, he said, looking between us. We're all friends here. Friends, she echoed, her voice dripping with disdain. This is family we're talking about, Kyle. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here we were, family embroiled in a mess created by Jessica's actions, and it felt surreal. I glanced at Kyle, who seemed genuinely confused by the whole situation. He had no idea how deeply the betrayal ran, but I knew I had to make it clear. Jessica, you need to stop pretending. Just admit what you did. I demanded, feeling the anger boiling inside me. For a moment, she seemed to struggle with her words, her bravado slipping. Fine. I spent time with Kyle, but it meant nothing. She finally shouted, her voice cracking under pressure. We were just talking, you're overreacting. Talking. Is that what you call it when you flirt with someone else, when you have secret conversations? At this point, I could see the tears spilling down her cheeks, and part of me felt a pang of sympathy. But the other part, the part that had been wronged, only felt vindicated. I wasn't going to let her off the hook that easily. I'm not the one who made this a mess, Jess. You did. I replied, my voice firm, and you can't just brush it off as nothing. You've broken my trust, and now it's time for you to face the consequences. She took a step back, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're being cruel, Matt. I can't believe you're doing this to me. Cruel? No, I'm being honest. I'm finally standing up for myself because I deserve better than this. The heat of the moment was palpable, and I could feel the support of my friends behind me, even if they remained silent. The tears in her eyes were a mix of anger and shame, and for the first time I felt like I was regaining some power in this situation. I had been the one left in the dark, but now the tables had turned. I had taken the first step in reclaiming my dignity, and I could see that it was hitting her hard. Matt, please, she breathed, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for this to happen. I love you. Love, is that what you call it? I shot back, my voice rising. You don't get to throw around that word when you've been with someone else. The weight of my words hung heavily in the air, and I could see the realization washing over her. She had dug her own grave, and now she was standing at the edge, staring into the abyss. As the confrontation intensified, I knew I had to push for the truth. Tell me, Jess, how long has this been going on? How many times have you lied to me? She hesitated, and for a moment I thought she might finally come clean. But then she shook her head, her expression shifting from shame to defiance. I won't answer that. You can't force me to confess. I felt a surge of frustration. You think lying is going to save you. It only makes things worse. You're going to have to answer for this one way or another. Jessica's expression shifted from defiance to pure desperation. I could see her mind racing, trying to find a way out of the corner I had backed her into. She glanced at Kyle for support, but he looked just as bewildered as the rest of us. Right now, it's not about me. I'm just trying to figure out what to do next, she said, her voice softer now, cracking with uncertainty. Next, I echoed, incredulous. How about you? Start with the truth. No more excuses. No more lies. Just tell me what you've done. The world around us faded as we stood there, locked in this emotional battle. I could feel the weight of my choice bearing down on me. This confrontation was just the beginning, but it had already begun to dismantle the carefully crafted facade that Jessica had built. As she stood there, vulnerable, broken, and cornered, I realized that the truth would have its own consequences. No matter how this played out, I knew I would emerge from this stronger. The path ahead might be uncertain, but I was ready to face it. With each passing moment, I felt more empowered to take control of my narrative and to ensure that Jessica faced the reality of her choices. I was done being the passive participant in my own life. The fight was just beginning, and I was ready to see it through to the end. The tension in the room was suffocating. Jessica stood there, visibly shaken, and I could sense the shifting dynamics among our friends. They were unsure how to react as they watched the confrontation unfold, but I felt empowered and unwavering. The truth was finally emerging, and I was determined to ensure Jessica understood the full weight of what she had done. Matt, please, she said, her voice trembling as she tried to regain her composure. I never meant to hurt you. It was just a stupid mistake. A mistake? I repeated, my disbelief evident. This isn't just a mistake, Jess. You've been lying and sneaking around behind my back. How long do you think you can keep dodging the truth? Don't make this worse than it is. she snapped, her anger flaring momentarily before the fear returned to her eyes. "You're going to ruin everything, and I can't believe you would do this in front of everyone." I took a deep breath, grounding myself amid the whirlwind of emotions. "You want to talk about ruining things? You did that all on your own. You've made your choices, and it's time for you to face the consequences." I took a step closer to her, making sure she understood the gravity of the situation. "You think I'm going to just forgive and forget? You think you can sweep this under the rug? No, Jess, you need to own up to what you've done." "Matt, please," she pleaded, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm sorry, I'll do anything to make this right." "Anything?" I echoed, my voice steady but laced with sarcasm. "What does that even mean? You've broken my trust. How can I ever believe a word you say again?" Jessica's face fell, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. But the betrayal was too deep, the hurt too raw. I had loved her, believed in her, and now I was left with the shards of that trust scattered at my feet. "I don't want to lose you," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I love you, Matt. Please just give me a chance to explain." "Explain? What more is there to explain? You've already made it clear how little our marriage means to you." My heart raced, the anger still bubbling beneath the surface. "You think a few tears are going to make this go away? Maybe we can work on it," she suggested, desperation creeping into her voice. "I can end things with Kyle. I promise I'll." Better. The thought of her ending things with Kyle sent a wave of conflicting emotions through me. Part of me wanted to believe she could fix this, that she could change, but the other part, the part that had been hurt, knew better. "You think it's that simple? Just because you end it with him doesn't erase the damage you've done. Don't you care about our marriage?" she shot back, her voice rising again. "You're ready to throw it all away over one mistake." "One mistake? Jess, this isn't just a slip-up at a party. You've been lying to me for weeks, if not longer. You've been sneaking around with my cousin's husband. This is betrayal on a level I can't even begin to describe." I could see the weight of my words crashing down on her, and for the first time, I saw her confidence waver. She looked around the room at our friends, and I could tell she was realizing just how deep in trouble she really was. "This isn't just about us anymore. This is about how you've affected everyone in this room," I said, gesturing to our friends who were witnessing this unraveling drama unfold. "You're not just hurting me, you're dragging our whole family into this mess." The color drained from her face as the realization hit her. I could see the embarrassment and shame wash over her, and for a moment I felt a flicker of satisfaction. She was finally understanding the impact of her actions. "Matt, I never wanted this to come to light," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I could handle it without it affecting anyone else." "Handle it? Is that what you call it? You thought you could keep this secret, keep living your life while betraying the person who trusted you the most?" My voice rose, filled with the anger I had held back for too long. "You should have thought about that before you started playing games." I could see my friends shifting uncomfortably, trying to process the unfolding drama. I could only imagine what they were thinking. I had put them in a position where they had to witness the fallout of my marriage, and I felt a pang of guilt for dragging them into it. But I needed them there, needed them to see what was happening. "Right now, Jess, it's too late for tears and apologies. You've crossed a line, and I need you to understand that," I said firmly. "You need to decide what you really want. Are you ready to come clean, or are you going to keep lying?" The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica's face was pale, and she looked like she was about to crumble under the weight of the moment. "I don't want to lose you, Matt." "I'll do anything," she repeated, but there was a desperation in her voice that made it clear she was grasping at straws. "Anything?" I challenged again. "Then how about you tell our friends the truth right now? No more hiding, no more lies. Let's lay everything out in the open." She hesitated, looking around at our friends, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. "You want me to tell them everything?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes. They deserve to know what kind of person you've been while they stood by us." I replied, my voice steady. "You need to take responsibility for your actions, and it starts now." Her gaze flickered back to me, and I saw the fight drain from her. "Fine," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I want you to know that I regret everything. I never wanted to hurt you." The moment hung in the air as she faced our friends, and I could feel the tension thickening. I've been seeing Kyle, she started, her voice shaking. It started innocently, but then it turned into something more. I didn't want to hurt Matt, but I kept lying to myself, thinking I could manage it without anyone finding out. Our friends' faces were a mixture of shock and disappointment, and I could see their expressions shifting as they processed her words. Jessica's admission hung in the air, and I watched as her bravado crumbled completely. "I'm so sorry for everything," she continued, her voice breaking. "I never meant for it to get this far, and I should have been honest with you from the start. I made a terrible mistake, and now I see how much I've hurt you." I felt a mixture of anger and vindication as I heard her confess. Part of me wanted to scream at her for her betrayal, but another part of me felt a strange sense of relief. She was finally taking responsibility for her actions, but it still felt like a hollow victory. As I stood there, watching her unravel, I realized that this wasn't just about exposing her lies. It was about confronting the truth ourselves, the truth of what our marriage had become. I had tried to hold on to the idea of us for so long, and now it was finally crumbling before my eyes. But this was just the beginning. I still had decisions to make about our future, and as I looked at Jessica, I knew that the consequences of her actions would resonate long after this moment. I had to decide what I was willing to accept moving forward, and whether love could ever be enough to rebuild what had been broken. The night was far from over, and the emotional fallout was just starting to unfold. I needed to figure out how to navigate the aftermath of this confrontation and what it would mean for both of us. Would I be able to find a way to forgive her, or was this the end of our story? As Jessica's confession hung in the air, the gravity of the moment weighed heavily on all of us. I watched as her words sunk in, the shock palpable on the faces of our friends. The silence was deafening, and I could feel the tension thickening in the room. I had exposed the truth, but now we were all left to grapple with the fallout. "Wow, Jess, I can't believe this," Kyle finally said, his voice shaky. "You really hurt Matt, man. I had no idea." Jessica's face fell, and I could see the humiliation washing over her. I know I messed up," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I never intended for this to happen. It just spiraled out of control, and I didn't know how to stop it." "Stop it," I echoed, my anger reigniting. "You could have stopped it at any time, Jess. You chose to keep lying. You chose to keep seeing him." She looked down, shame written all over her face. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I really am." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure as I felt the anger bubbling inside me. "Sorry doesn't fix this," I said firmly. "Sorry doesn't erase the lies or the betrayal." My friends exchanged glances, unsure of how to navigate the emotional turmoil that was unfolding. I could see the concern in their eyes, and it made the situation feel all the more surreal. I had never imagined my life would play out like this, an audience to my crumbling marriage. I don't know what to do," Jessica said, her voice breaking. "I love you, Matt. I made a terrible mistake, and I want to make it right." "Love?" I shot back, feeling the fire in my chest. "What does love even mean when you throw it away so easily? You've shattered the trust we built, and now I'm supposed to believe that it was just a mistake. It feels like a betrayal." "I know that. I can't explain my actions," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I was selfish and stupid, and I thought I could handle it without hurting anyone." "Clearly, you couldn't," I replied, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "And now we're all dealing with the consequences." The room felt heavy with unspoken words as Jessica continued to cry. I could see the regret written all over her face, but I was left balancing my own pain and anger. I had loved her deeply, and now that love felt like a distant memory. "I don't want to lose you, Matt," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll go to counseling or therapy. I'll prove to you that I can change." Part of me wanted to believe her, to hope that we could somehow mend the pieces of our shattered relationship. But I also knew that words were meaningless without actions to back them up. "You think some therapy sessions will fix this?" I asked, incredulously. "What you did goes so much deeper than that." "I know, and I'm sorry," she repeated, her voice cracking. "I don't want to lose what we had. I don't want to lose you." As I stood there watching her break down, I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. The anger was still there, but beneath it lay a Layer of sadness, sadness for the love that had once thrived between us. I had to face the reality that the foundation of our marriage was crumbling, and rebuilding it would take so much more than apologies. I need time to think, I said finally, my voice steady but filled with pain. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if this is something we can come back from. The look of despair on her face was almost too much to bear, but I had to remain firm. You need to face the truth of what you've done. It's not just about what you want anymore, it's about the damage you've caused. I can't just sweep this under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. As the reality of my words sank in, I could see the fight leave her. I understand, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I just hope you can find it in your heart to give me another chance. But what does that even look like? I challenged. How do we move forward from this? You've shattered my trust, and trust is the foundation of any relationship. How do I know you won't do this again? I'll prove it to you, she insisted, desperation lacing her voice. I'll do anything to show you that I'm committed to fixing this. At that moment, I realized that no matter how much I wanted to believe her, I had to protect myself. I couldn't go back to the blind trust I once had. I had to be cautious, to really think about what I wanted moving forward. I need some space to process this, I said, my voice firm. I can't make decisions when I'm in the middle of this chaos. It's too raw right now. I understand, she said, her voice breaking as she pulled away. The hurt in her eyes was evident, but I knew I had to prioritize my own emotional well-being. I couldn't allow my heart to be trampled on again. As the night wore on and our friends tried to lighten the mood, I felt a sense of detachment wash over me. I had exposed Jessica's deceit, but now I was left to grapple with the impact of that revelation. It felt like I was at the center of a storm and the winds were still howling. I had to decide what my next steps would be. Would I seek a separation, or would I give her a chance to prove herself? The emotional turmoil was exhausting, but I knew one thing. I couldn't allow myself to crumble under the weight of her betrayal. As I sat there, lost in thought, I realized that this was more than just a moment of conflict. It was a turning point, a chance for me to reclaim my narrative and figure out what I truly wanted. I would take the time to reflect on my feelings, to seek clarity amidst the chaos. This wasn't just about Jessica anymore. It was about me reclaiming my power and deciding how to move forward. I was done being a passive participant in my own life. The road ahead might be uncertain, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next. In that moment of introspection, I felt the flicker of hope. I could emerge from this stronger, more resilient. I would navigate the aftermath of this confrontation, and I would ensure that I came out on the other side, no matter what it took. The days that followed the confrontation were a whirlwind of emotions. After that night, I needed space more than ever. Jessica had promised to change, to prove her love, but I wasn't prepared to just jump back into the fray. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down into the abyss of uncertainty. We agreed to take some time apart, something I had insisted upon to gather my thoughts. I began to realize how much I had neglected my own needs in the chaos of our life together. I needed to focus on myself, to figure out what I truly wanted. During those initial days, I threw myself into work and reconnected with friends who had been concerned about me. They offered support and encouragement, reminding me that I deserved better than betrayal. It was during one of those conversations with my friend Dave that I had a breakthrough. "Matt, you've got to think about what you want," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Are you really willing to forgive her? What will it take for you to rebuild that trust?" His words resonated with me. I realized that forgiveness was a choice, but it had to come from a place of self-respect. I couldn't just forgive for the sake of preserving our marriage. It had to be genuine. I needed to see real change in Jessica, not just lip service. After a week, I decided it was time to meet with Jessica again. I agreed to meet her at a cafe that held special memories for us, a place where we had shared laughter, dreams, and moments of intimacy before the shadows of betrayal crept in. As I walked in, I felt a mix of nostalgia and apprehension. She was already there, nervously fidgeting with her hands. When our eyes met, a wave of memories hit me: our wedding day, the joy we once shared. But as I sat down, I was reminded of the weight of her actions. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I needed to talk," I replied, keeping my tone steady. I've had some time to think. I watched her take a deep breath, a flicker of hope in her eyes. And, what do you want to say? I want to know if you truly understand what you've done. I began, my voice firm. This isn't just about you being sorry, it's about the trust that's been shattered and the pain you've caused. I know, she said, tears brimming in her eyes. I've thought about it every single day. I can't take back what I did, but I want to make things right. I want to earn your trust again. Earning trust isn't just about saying the right things, I replied. It's about consistent actions over time. You need to be willing to do the work both personally and in our relationship. Jessica nodded, her expression shifting to one of determination. I'm committed to doing whatever it takes. I'll go to counseling. I'll be open and honest with you about everything. This has been a wake-up call for me. I felt a flicker of hope, but I also knew that actions speak louder than words. It's going to take time, Jess. You need to understand that just saying sorry isn't enough. I get that, she said earnestly. I'll be patient. I want this to work, but I know I have to prove it to you. As we talked, I could sense a shift. In her demeanor, there was a sincerity in her voice that I hadn't heard before, a willingness to confront her mistakes head-on. What if we start with small steps? I suggested. Let's begin by being open about our feelings, our fears, and our hopes. I need to feel safe in this relationship again. I can do that, she replied, her voice steady. I don't want to lose you, and I realize now how much I took for granted. The conversation flowed naturally, and for the first time in weeks I felt a tentative connection beginning to rekindle. We talked late into the afternoon, sharing our thoughts and fears. It was uncomfortable, but it felt necessary. After our meeting, I left the cafe feeling a mix of uncertainty and cautious optimism. I wasn't ready to jump back into our previous dynamic, but I could see the beginnings of change. I realized that rebuilding trust would be a process, and I had to be open to the possibility of forgiveness, if it was genuine. Over the next few weeks, we began taking small steps together. Jessica started attending counseling, and she made it a point to communicate more openly. With me, I was still on guard, but I appreciated her efforts. It was an uphill battle, and there were moments of frustration and doubt, but I was learning to express my feelings. I was learning to stand up for myself in ways I hadn't before. I recognized that my worth didn't hinge on her actions, that I could be strong even in the face of heartbreak. Eventually, we began to rediscover the joy in each other. The laughter that had once filled our home started to creep back in. However, I was careful not to ignore the lessons I had learned. I was more aware of my boundaries and my own needs. We slowly began to build a new relationship, one that was grounded in honesty and accountability. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I felt empowered by the choices I had made. I had faced the darkness of betrayal and emerged stronger, ready to navigate the complexities of love and trust. Looking back, I realized that the experience had taught me valuable lessons about vulnerability, self-worth, and the importance of communication. I learned that love isn't just about the good times. It's about facing adversity together and building a foundation of trust that can withstand the storms of life. As I reflect on this journey, I know that relationships require work, but they can also lead to growth and deeper understanding. While the scars of betrayal may never fully fade, they can serve as reminders of the strength I possess and the commitment I have to being true to myself. In the end, I found a path forward, not just for Jessica and me, but also for myself. I emerged from this experience more resilient, wiser, and ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I would always choose to honor my own heart above all else.